Hey, you guys, doing another Flickers of Fear, going back to the 1970s and talking about a movie that, man, I just feel like is really, really underrated and really, really underseen. I don't know why it's not better known. I don't know. I mean, it really should be up there with like some of the best horror of the 70s, particularly psychological horror, which is what this is. This is Magic from 1978. And I know that a couple of you have seen it because I know that I've gotten a couple of recommendations to do this. And I've actually been wanting to do this for a really long time because I've seen this multiple times. This is one of those movies, I feel like it was on basic cable a lot, like back in the early 80s. And I feel like, because I probably saw it like in pieces, like a bunch of the time. And, anything that's about like a creepy dummy, like a ventriloquist dummy, is going to like get my attention. And so the crazy thing about this movie, though, is that even though it's about a scary ventriloquist dummy, and in that sense, it is a horror movie, but I saw this other review of it that said this is like the classiest killer doll movie like you'll ever see because it's like so many Oscar winners behind this. It's just like the pool of talent like in this movie is just like fucking amazing, right? So it's like Anthony Hopkins plays the main character. Ann-Margret is also in this. Burgess Meredith is in this. So, it's just the acting is great. It's directed by Richard Attenborough, who I think most people nowadays probably know as like more of an actor, like he was in Jurassic Park and stuff like that. But he was also a director, and he directed some great fucking movies. He did fucking Shadowlands about C.S. Lewis, which is a great movie. He did Chaplin, Gandhi, A Chorus Line. So, he has a bunch of Oscars, I think maybe two, maybe more than that. And it was based on a book by William Goldman, who also adapted the screenplay, which was something he did a lot. If you don't know who William Goldman is, for Christ's sake, he did All the President's Men, Marathon Man, The Princess Bride, probably the one he's best known for, like in sort of cult movie circles. Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, I believe he won an Oscar for that. And it also has a score by the Oscar-winning, multiple Oscar-winning Jerry Goldsmith. So what is this movie about? Like I said, this is... you can say it's kind of like a killer doll movie, but not really. It's more like a psychological... I guess they do kind of leave it ambiguous as to whether the dummy is actually alive or not. I tend to think probably not, but you could kind of go either way. And if you want to like feel like the dummy's like alive, then that's up to you. I don't think I ever read the William Goldman novel that this was based on. Because like I said, he adapted his own novel like to the screenplay, and he changed some stuff around because, different things work in a book that wouldn't necessarily work in a movie. So I'm not entirely sure how the book goes, if the doll is actually alive in there. There's also, if you guys have seen, I don't know if you guys have seen, there's another kind of killer ventriloquist dummy movie back from the 40s. I think it came out in 1945 called Dead of Night. And this is kind of a little bit more along those lines. And it's interesting because I would call it a horror film. It's a psychological horror film for sure. I feel like a lot of the marketing materials called it a terrifying love story because there's also kind of like a romance in there as well. So it's kind of one of those 70s, like I said, it's just this is really classy. It's just like good movie. It's not even just, oh, it's a great horror movie. It's just a good movie like in general. It's just like a great fucking movie. And just great acting performances, great writing. It's just, and it's also like super, super creepy. It just has that going for it too. I remember also that there was a great trailer for this. Like there wasn't even really a trailer because it was basically just the ventriloquist dummy, whose name is Fats. And he's just basically on a black background, like staring at the screen, like saying this really creepy rhyme. And I remember that ad, and I remember a lot of people that grew up in the 70s, like seeing that ad and being like really, really freaked out by it, which like I said, it's on YouTube. So if you want to go look, it's like Magic 1978 trailer or whatever. I think there were two different ones, but they were both like pretty much the same, which is this dummy like talking to the camera, and it's like super creepy. But yeah, so what we have is Anthony Hopkins is playing a guy named Corky Withers. Now, at the very beginning, he's like a failing magician, I guess. Like he has this mentor named Merlin, and Merlin is dying. And I love the first scene of this. Like the opening scene of this is so great because so Corky has gone to like this amateur night and he's doing his magic trick, right? but he's telling Merlin, oh, I finally got brave enough to get up on stage and do my magic act. And he's telling Merlin like how much everybody loved it and how awesome he was and all this other stuff. And then meanwhile, they're showing like what actually happened, and he like completely took the pipe, and it's like nobody was like even paying attention, or they were just like laughing at him or like getting up and leaving or whatever. So already you kind of have a disconnect between reality and and what his perception of it is, or what he's trying to portray to the world. So after that, we kind of cut ahead a year. Now we're at the same club, but now Burgess Meredith, who's playing kind of a high-powered like William Morris talent agent, has apparently discovered Corky, and he's bringing somebody else to this club, like to show him he's got this great fucking act and he's really going places. He wants to he wants to make him a star, basically. So what has happened in the year, like since we see Corky taking the pipe at, with his magic act, is that he has learned to do ventriloquy, I guess is how you say it. And he has added this dummy, Fats, to his act so that, because Anthony Hopkins in this movie comes across as like this really timid, shy, kind of, sorry about the background noise, like my neighbor's doing yard work again. But yeah, so anyway, so he comes across as like this really, really shy, timid, person. So what he has done is that he's taking all this stuff about like his lack of confidence in his magic act, and he has added this ventriloquist dummy, Fats, who is essentially like taking the piss out of him. So it's almost kind of like he's taking like the criticisms of like the audience, or he's anticipating the criticisms of the audience, like, oh, you suck and all this other kind of stuff. And he's putting in this dummy. So he's making it like a back and forth now. And this has been like a really successful tactic for him, because like, just a year has gone by. And since he's added Fats to the act, that's just like kind of like smart mouthing him all the time and like telling him how much he sucks and everything, while he's just this shy, oh, don't say things like that. You know what I mean? So it's just kind of like back and forth. So since he's added that, he's gotten like really successful. Like there's lines around the fucking block to come see him and everything. So like I said, Burgess Meredith's character, Ben Green, who Fats calls Gangrene, so that's what I'm going to call him too. So Gangrene basically is like, all these, like all the networks are interested, they want you to go, we want you to play Vegas, and then we want you to do all these shows. We want you to go to Carson. Maybe you'll get your own variety show and all this other kind of stuff. So it really seems like his agent is like pulling for him, and he really wants to go places. So at first, Corky seems like really jazzed about this, like, woohoo, I'm going to be a star, I'm going to be famous and everything like that. But then a little tiny problem arises when Gangrene says that, well, if you're going to have a network show, like, for union roles and everything like that, you have to have a medical exam, which doesn't seem like that big a deal. But Corky has a fucking fit about it. Now, the reason that he has a fit about it, which we're already starting to suspect, but I don't think that Gangrene suspects it just yet, although he does suspect it like not too long after this, is that Corky knows that something is seriously mentally the matter with him, and he doesn't want to subject himself to a medical exam and have them perhaps find out what his psychological state is like, because it seems to be disintegrating, in the sense that he is he's basically becoming a split personality, I guess you want to say, because he basically talks to Fats, his ventriloquist dummy, as if it's another person. And but he seems to know that there's something the matter with that, and he doesn't want other people to find out. So because he refuses to take the medical exam, and he just will not subject himself to it, and Ben Green is just like, man, come on, it's not a big deal, you really have to do it. So Corky decides that he's just going to run away. You know what I mean? That's just to get away from it, because he's like, he feels too much pressure. He's in New York City at the beginning. So what he decides to do to go hide is that he goes back to the Catskills, like this little town in the Catskills where he grew up. And he goes back to see, he kind of stops by his parents' house, but it's like there's nobody there, like his family's dead or whatever. So he goes to this, it's like an old like cabin resort where his high school crush, whose name was Peggy Ann Snow, played by Ann-Margret, where her family used to live. So he decides he's going to go up there because it's this sort of remote like cabin, whatever. And so he goes up there and he finds out that Peggy is actually still there. Like her parents have died and have left her this resort. And it's really kind of like this down at heel. Like she's like, you know, the Catskills are dying. No one's really staying up here anymore. So there's really nobody staying there. So he basically goes up there and hides in this cabin and doesn't want anybody to know that he's there. And the excuse that he's telling himself is that, oh, you know, I'm just this timid person and I'm afraid of success and I couldn't handle the pressure. So I just came up here to hide. I mean, and Peggy knows who he is. She's seen him on TV and stuff like that. And she remembers him from high school. So even though she's married subsequently, she married her high school sweetheart, whose name is Duke, but he's away all the time and she seems like she's not real satisfied in the marriage. She seems like she's kind of like stuck in a rut. She doesn't like hate her husband, but you know, she seems like it's, you know, the magic is gone, I guess, if you want to say that. So a little bit of a romance starts to develop between Corky and Peg while the husband is away. Now, as this part of the movie goes on, as I said, it gets more and more clear that Corky is losing his fucking marbles. In the sense, there's this one really great scene where he's talking about his mentor, Merlin, who we saw at the very beginning of the film, and how Merlin and his wife, who was also his assistant, like in his magic act, how they used to do like this mind reading thing with the cards. And it's like, he would always say, oh, that meant that you were soulmates if you could like guess each other's cards because you were like, you know, sharing thoughts and you're like simpatico and stuff. So he wants to do this. Well, actually, Peg asks him to do it. She's like, come on, let's do it. It'll be fun and all this other kind of stuff. And he initially does not want to. And there's this really, really tense scene where they're sitting at the table and like, he's like asking her to like concentrate on the card, like to guess what it is and all this other, and then he starts getting like really, really angry and he just like lashes out and just like, you know, you're not trying hard enough. You're not concentrating. So you know that he's just like flipping out. Now, this kind of goes on. Peg doesn't really seem to notice too much, although she is like a little bit afraid of him because, like I said, there's that whole issue where he kind of like flies in a rage there. But she kind of starts to fall for him again. Like I said, they knew each other back in high school, but he had a huge crush on her back then. But he was like, and she knew that he did, but he was never really had the balls to ask her out or anything like that. So he was like, you know, admiring her from afar type of thing. But, you know, she thinks he's like, you know, kind of sweet and everything. So they, like I said, they kind of start hooking up. And then there's kind of a thing, too, where Fats starts to get, and I'm talking about him like he's a separate character, because that's kind of how Corky sees him, as a separate character. And Fats is basically like, hey, you know, that woman's coming between us, and it's like, you can't leave me behind, and all this other kind of stuff. So, you know, it's kind of going that way. Like I said, he's got arguing with the puppet and shit like that. So at some point, Duke, the husband, returns a little earlier than he was supposed to, and immediately starts to suspect that some little shenanigans are going on with Corky and Peg, which he is correct about, but obviously they're not gonna, like, you know, they're trying to like deny it. No, we never slept together. What are you talking about? It's, you know what I mean? It's that type of thing, even though they obviously did. So it gets very, very awkward. Now, as Corky's mental state starts to deteriorate further, he's basically in his cabin and he's arguing with Fats, like back and forth, and like pretty, you know, there's this very like big deal, like severe argument, right? And they're just like screaming at each other. And it so happens that Ben Green, Gang Green, his agent, has found him and sees part of this display. Like he just comes into the cabin and he's just like, what you doing there, Cork? Like fighting with your fucking puppet. And Corky tries unsuccessfully to kind of be like, well, yeah, this is just like a new act we're doing. Don't you, you know, funny. Yeah, this is like my new gig. And it's like, you were right. I was just afraid of success, but I'm up there working on a new bit and it's going to be so cool. And at this point, you know, the agent who is suspected that there was something the matter with him has come up here to like essentially prove it to himself. And he's like, yeah, dude, bro, I think there's something really, really the matter with you. And I really want to get you some help because, I mean, his agent is actually a good guy. He does actually want Corky to be successful, and he knows that his psychological state is getting in the way of that. So he's like, basically, come back with me. We'll get you some psychological help. We can still do this and everything like that. And he's like, and then there's another really great scene too. And a lot of people that review this movie like talk about this scene because it's just, that's why I'm saying this is just like such a great movie, because this scene, which is like 2 or 3 minutes long, and it's like almost all silent, but it's like super, super tense. Because basically what Gangrene says is like, okay, I will stop giving you shit if we can sit here in this room for 5 minutes and Fats doesn't talk. Right? Because that's kind of what Corky does when he doesn't know what to say, because like I said, he's very timid, he's very shy. So he just picks up the puppet, and the puppet can just say whatever, and everybody said, oh, it's the puppet. So it's kind of like his id, like channeling his id or something like that, but through the puppet, so he can get away with it. So he's like, okay, we're just going to sit here. I'm going to smoke a cigar and I'm going to look at you. We're going to sit across from each other, and Fats can't talk for 5 minutes. Like, we can talk, but Fats can't talk, because that actually Fats' voice, that is Anthony Hopkins doing that voice. But it's obviously like a different voice, because it's like, bah, 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 but it's like, it's the same guy. And honestly, I think they did a lot of voiceover, but I'm pretty sure, because I've heard that there's like, a bunch of extra stuff like on the Blu-ray, and they have like some kind of archival footage of Anthony Hopkins doing ventriloquy. Like, he had actually learned some ventriloquy so he could do some of it in the movie, and like you can kind of see like in the movie, like sometimes like his throat is moving and stuff like that. So he did actually like learn to do it, although a lot of it is voiceover. So they're sitting there, and at first Corky's all like, I can make him stop talking for 5 years because this will be super easy, you know what I mean? And then like as the scene goes on, how long has it been now? He's like, 30 seconds. Yeah, sure does seem like a long time, because he's not gonna be able to do it. He's like starting to sweat and shit like that, and it's like 2.5 minutes, and then he just like looks at him, and it's like, it's so sad. That's another thing too. It's like he's a fucking crazy. He knows he's like, there's something the matter with him, and it's just like tragic because he can't help it, and he just like looks at his agent, and he's like, I can't make it. And I just can't do it. And then he just like snatches the puppet up and starts talking in the puppet's voice, and it's just like this sad, like really, really tense scene. So after that point, things start going wildly off the rails, because since Ben, Gangrene now knows that Corky is Looney Tunes, he's basically saying, oh, well, they're going to put you away now, and it's going to ruin your whole entire life. So basically Fat says, you have to kill him. So again, another like really good scene. But so as it goes on from there, like I said, I don't want to spoil like too much about it, but even though I probably just did, but yeah, so the dummy does kind of like start killing people, like to get people out of the way. And there is, I guess, because I have seen some reviewers say they thought they left it ambiguous as to whether the doll was actually alive or if Corky just thought he was. I'm pretty sure I'm team I don't think the doll is alive, even though there's a couple scenes in there where it could be argued that, and like I could be totally wrong about this, but I don't think the intention was for the doll to be alive. I think the intention was for Corky to believe that the doll was alive, and that it was a separate entity, and that it was doing stuff like against his wishes, I guess. But like I said, you could read it as like, the dummy possessed him, or or something. You could read it like that if you wanted to. I'm kind of team I don't think the doll is alive, but if you want to read it that way, it's totally legit. But yeah, so like I said, this came out in 1978. I don't really know. I don't really know if it did all that well, like at the box office, because it seemed like it sort of disappeared, even though it's like a brilliant movie. And like I said, there's like there's so many Oscar winners. There's just like so much talent behind it. It's just like, and it's so creepy. And like I said, it's not a straight up horror movie, and it's it's very much like a psychological kind of thing more than a horror thing. But like I said, if you like killer doll, it's not like Chucky or anything like that. That's kind of a different thing. But it has that really sort of creepy, and I even think I think I read somewhere that, what was that R.L. Stine, that Goosebumps that was about the dummy? What the fuck is that dummy's name? I know I've seen some of the Goosebumps movies, and I read some of the books when I was younger, but I can't remember what that can't remember what that doll was, but I don't know. But the dummy in the Goosebumps book, I think, is based on Fats, because like I said, I think a lot of people saw that trailer back, even if they didn't see the movie, and they saw the trailer back then and were like, what the fuck? Because it is like a pretty creepy trailer. And Fats, the ventriloquist dummy, is like a super, super creepy. I mean, all ventriloquist dummies are kind of creepy, but he's like one of the creepiest ones, because it kind of looks like Anthony Hopkins, but not. Like, I don't know, like the doll, like the eyes and shit like that are really creepy. But yeah, so if you haven't seen it, you really should. I feel like it's one of the most underrated horror movies of the 70s. All the acting is great. It's just like the direction is great. It's a beautiful looking movie. And it's just great, like psychological horror. It just kind of ramps up and ramps up. You know, like I said, there's kind of a romance thing in there. And it's almost kind of like, I mean, I think, honestly, in my opinion, this is one of Anthony Hopkins' best performances, particularly toward the end when he's just like losing it. And he's just like, you know, screaming at this dummy and the dummy screaming back and they're having like arguments and stuff. It's just like, so, and it sounds like funny when you put it like that, but it's totally not funny. Like in the context of the movie, it's actually kind of horrifying. But yeah, you can definitely see like where Anthony Hopkins, because you know, it's a lot of people, I think maybe after Silence of the Lambs came out and was like such a big you know, hit and everything, I think maybe a lot of people, or me, you know, maybe a lot of people kind of went back and revisited this. I don't know. I just kind of feel like it didn't, I feel like it didn't really get the attention that it deserves, and I feel like it still doesn't, like considering the caliber of the talent behind it, you know. So, but I definitely feel like more people should see it. So if you haven't seen it, I'm not sure where else it's streaming, but it's definitely, it was on Shudder, but I don't think it's on there anymore. But it is on Tubi for free if you want to watch it. So it might be on Amazon Prime as well. I'm not really entirely sure. But if you don't have Amazon Prime or you don't want to pay to rent it or whatever, it is on Tubi for free, although it does have ads. But you can see it on there. And I definitely recommend it, because especially if you like creepy doll movies, because it's like one of the creepiest fucking doll movies ever. This one, I should eventually get around to doing Dead of Night too. I don't usually do, I don't know, I was going to say I don't usually do movies that old, but I guess it doesn't really matter. I can do whatever fucking movies I want, right? Right. But yeah, if you like ventriloquist dummy, you know, shit, and killer doll movies, and you want to see like the fucking super, super high end killer doll movie, ventriloquist dummy doll movie, you definitely need to see Magic. So go to Tubi, watch it, and we'll talk about it down in the comments. And that will do it for this Flickers of Fear for this week. And I will see you guys on the next one. Bye.